So we need to install Python packages to communicate with web services. And these packages are not obviously provided as part of the ArcGIS Pro ArcPy distribution. And so we need to install these packages, WalkScore and GeoPy. WalkScore, you can go to this particular location here on the web to find out all about the WalkScore API. And we're going to use this type of installation right here. It always tells you how to install that very easily. But it's a little bit tricky when we're working with external packages. We have to do it in a particular way so that these can be installed with ArcPy and everything else that's part of the ArcPy distribution of Python. So the WalkScore API, and then GeoPy, which is a geocoding interface to numerous different geocoding services, including even ArcGIS geocoding services. But in the exercise and stuff, we'll be using OpenStreetMap geocoding services in our examples. To install packages, what we need to do is to open up ArcGIS Pro in administrator mode. And I'll go to ArcGIS, and then I'll find ArcGIS Pro. And I won't click on ArcGIS Pro, but first I won't select it, just have my mouse over it like this. Then I right click on it, and then more, run as administrator. And it will ask you, do you want to make this allowed? And you say yes. And this is so we can clone. And I'll just open a just the basic start template, no saving in this case. Then I'll just switch back to Windows Explorer for a second. And I'm going to create a folder on my C drive. I'll just say new folder. I'm going to call it Conda Clones. I'll just put it here, sort it, and there it is, Conda Clones, and there's nothing in it right now. The reason I'm making this Conda Clones folder is that is where I'm going to clone the current ArcGIS Pro Python environment. So I click on Project and then Python, and it may say refreshing package information, and that's okay. Now, in the package manager, we can clone the current default or base Python environment, which it'll say right here, it's a project environment, ArcGIS Pro-Py3 program files. This is where it is, ArcGIS Pro bin Python envs ArcGIS Pro-Py3. That is where Python resides that ArcGIS Pro uses. We cannot install new packages there because it's read-only for installation of packages so that the base install of Python does not become corrupted. And even says here, note, cannot modify the default Python environment, clone, then activate a new environment first. So to clone this environment, there's two ways to do it. This is the first way. I click on Manage Environments, and up comes the Manage Environments dialog. In here, you may not see a list like mine. You might only see, or should only see, ArcGIS Pro-Py3. And you want to find, if you do have multiple ones in here for whatever reason, look for the one that has the same path as you see under Project Environment right up here. And you see that's the same path. And then you just click Clone. The name will be ArcGIS Pro-Py3-clone. And then the folder you want to choose as the Conda Clones folder on the C drive, just so it's an easy place to know where it is. Conda Clones, and I click OK. Then I click Clone. This can take anywhere from a few seconds to a number of minutes. Once it is completed, you will see that it will have ArcGIS Pro-Pi3 clone, and it will give the path to the cloned environment. So if the path isn't there and it's still doing things, you still have to wait. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my ArcGIS Pro Python to this new cloned environment. It's just like the original. It's a clone. And notice it says restart ArcGIS Pro for your environment changes to take effect. And you also want to remember that right here. So I'll click OK. And it goes back to here. Now, if for some reason it failed, I will show you another method to do the same thing. That's actually a little bit quicker as well, but requires a bit more finesse with the command line. So once I have it there, I'm just going to close ArcGIS Pro. Now, if I open up ArcGIS Pro, I'll start again with a template, no save, just to check out the Python stuff. And I'll click on the project tab, Python, and it will say again, refreshing packages. And it should now say project environment, ArcGIS Pro-Pi3-clone, and then C conda clones. You could have called that whatever you wanted, by the way. I just chose conda clones to make that folder. So it'll remind me what's in there. And then it will say ArcGIS Pro-Pi3-clone. And that means you've successfully cloned the environment. Then I can click my back key. And I'm ready to start using Python as I would usually. Nothing, again, changes here in terms of ArcGIS Pro and ArcPy. It's just now using a cloned environment so that when we install new packages in that cloned environment, they will work. Whereas we can't install packages the other way around. So since I'm going to be installing packages, I'm going to close ArcGIS Pro for now. Now that we have a cloned environment, and if I just look at my C drive here, and it's in conda clones, and there's again, the ArcGIS Pro Pi3 clone, and that's been set as the default environment in ArcGIS Pro, we now have to set up PyScripter to work with this cloned environment. And unfortunately, we can't use the PyScripter that you've been using so far. We have to create or unzip a new PyScripter once you've downloaded it from the Module 8 folder. And I have mine here. I just have a Lecture 8 folder that I made for everything. And in here, you see the PyScripter. It's the same one from Lecture 1 or Module 1. And I just want to unzip it here. Extract here. And there we got PyScripter again. So it's the same PyScripter, but this is a new instance of it. So it's basically a fresh PyScripter that hasn't been modified in any way. So I open up PyScripter.exe, and it opens up default. There will be nothing in here because none of your previous scripts or anything will be in PyScripter. And I'm just going to make mine. I'm going to go over to my tools here, my options, my editor options, and I'm going to make my font bigger so you can see everything. There we go. I don't need that in there right now. And there's Python at the bottom. Now, what we need to do is we got to go first to Tools, Options, IDE Options. And then in here, we go to the code completion. And again, in special packages, it's just like you're setting it up for the first time. Put ArcPy. Once we have ArcPy for code completion, remember to go down to, just scroll down here a bit to the Python interpreter as well. and you want to switch off the reinitialize before run so that it's false. Otherwise, every time you run a script through the interpreter, it would reinitialize a Python session. That's good if you want to test your scripts in a environment which is clean every time, but we don't need to do that for most of our stuff. We can just use the same Python session and rerun it. And then I click OK. Next, I want to go to Run, Python versions, and then here I want to set up Python versions. So Run Python versions, set up Python versions. Here I have the registered Python versions, and I want to add an unregistered version, which will be our cloned environment. So I click on the plus button here. And then I'm going to go to C, Conda clones, ArcGIS Pro Py3 clone, select folder. And it puts it there. Then I want to click on this to make that the active environment. So it's the same one here as in ArcGIS Pro. And it will come up with the firewall thing, and you click allow access. Like so. And so now Conda is the cloned environment here, the same as ArcGIS Pro, and you can click close on that. And now this new instance of PyScripter is working with what we want it to, and we can just test it, import ArcPy, for example. You see all the Arc stuff comes up. And then I'll run that. And if it runs okay, then we know everything works great. So that's the first step, cloning the environment, and then creating a new instance of PyScripter, and then setting that instance to point to the cloned environment, the same as in ArcGIS Pro. So if I open up ArcGIS Pro now, I will see that I have the same environment for Python in ArcGIS Pro. And we have to do this so that we can install packages from external libraries. So I'll just start without a template here. Project, Python, and again, just double checking that everything is the same. In other words, that it's pointing to the same Python cloned environment. You can clone as many environments as you want, use ones for different things with different installed packages, etc. So there it is. Next, we need to install packages into the cloned environment. To do so, we need to open up a PowerShell instance in that particular location. So for example, I'm going to go back to my C drive here, Conda clones, ArcGIS Pro Py3 clone, like so. And then I'll go to scripts. Well, actually, before I do that, I want to show you where packages go. So going back to ArcGIS Pro Py3 clone, lib, and then site packages. And in here, you see the names of all the different things. And all of these are packages. And when we install an external package, it will have two folders in here, an info folder and a folder by the name of the library or package, like this one, TOML, for example, whatever that one is. I've never used it. ArcGIS, for example. So all of these can be imported into Python. So we go back over to ArcGIS Pro Py3 clone. And then I'm going to go into scripts. And then in scripts, I'm going to right click while holding my shift button down. Oops. Right click while holding the shift button down. And you'll see then an option to open PowerShell window here. Now here, I want to install first GeoPy. So I'll say pip install, or actually I have to do it this way, slash or dot slash pip install GeoPy. So now it says that it successfully installed GeoPy. Let's go back and check to see if it's there. So I'll go back to ArcGIS Pro Pi3 clone lib site packages. And I should see under GeoPy is now there. And of course, the info distribution folder, which means I can now import GeoPy. So I'll do it the same dot / pip install walk score -API, like so. And it successfully installed it. And let's just see if it's there. So I'll go back over to ArcGIS Pro Pi3 clone lib site packages. And I'll scroll down to see if walk score is there. There it is, walk score, and its info folder. So now I should be able to import those just to check if it works. So I'll say import walk score. It's there. Import GeoPy. It's there. I should be able to run those without any problem, like so. So now I know that my imports have worked and they're installed properly in the cloned environment. I can access them here, or I can access them in ArcGIS Pro by going to the analysis, opening up a Python window or a notebook, and saying same thing, import walk score, import GeoPy. And those work fine. So that's the steps we have to do in order to work with these external packages. And you don't have to reclone this. We'll be doing other external packages in the following weeks. As long as you've done this here and it's worked for you, you have a cloned environment and everything works out fine, and you can get to this point, that's great. Now, if the most often thing that goes wrong is that when you're going to project and you're going to Python and you're managing environments and you click clone on the default, and then the clone doesn't work for some reason. So if the clone doesn't work for some reason, you need to find out where it cloned to and then delete that clone. So you would delete that folder altogether. So here, for example, if I wanted to do this as a second way to clone an environment, I would clone it in a command window like PowerShell, like I just did. So for example, to do that here, so this is the second way, and if everything worked up to the stage you are right now, there's no problems, that's good. So first I have to switch to back to my, I'm pretending to start from scratch in the second way here. So I'm going there, ArcGIS Pro Pi3, setting that as the default, click OK. Close and reopen ArcGIS Pro. Now, when here, I'm just going to reopen ArcGIS Pro as an administrator. And I'm going to also close PyScripter for now. And I'm going to close PowerShell. and anything else I have open. So then I'll just open up a blank one. And all I'm doing here is I'm going to delete that cloned environment that I made and then show you how to clone it through the command line and then set it up in here. Because again, sometimes cloning through the package manager of Python in ArcGIS Pro just doesn't work. So I go to manage environments, and then I'm going to remove this one. There we go, that's done. And I can then close this window and then close ArcGIS Pro. And then I'll just reopen it to see and make sure that it's gone. So now we're back where we started. We have ArcGIS Pro. So again, starting, and we want to clone an environment, but we're going to do it outside of ArcGIS Pro. So this is ArcGIS Pro again, and you can see the default or base Python installation. If I go to manage environments, my environment is no longer there. So I'll just click cancel on that. And I'm going to close ArcGIS Pro for this particular example. I'm also going to remove my existing clone. And if there's anything in here from the failed attempt to clone the environment through ArcGIS Pro, delete the folder altogether. Then this is what we're going to do. We're going to use what's called an anaconda command set. So conda, we'll say create, and then what? _ clone. And what are we cloning? Well, we're cloning the default ArcGIS Pro Py3 base Python. And we're putting that clone in a folder called C conda clones. So to do that, I just have to go to what's called the ArcGIS Pro Anaconda environment. And the easiest way to do that is to go to your start, ArcGIS, and you'll see in here Python command prompt. And right click on that and more. So in here, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say clone, or conda, I should say. Conda create, 2 - clone equals clone equals the location, and I can just get that from Windows Explorer. So I'll go into Windows Explorer, I'll say, okay, I'll go to C, Program Files, ArcGIS, Pro, bin, Python, Pro bin Python, envs, envs, ArcGIS Pro Py3. And I'll just grab that right there, Control copy, and then I can put that in here in quotation marks. And we want to put that in C / conda clones. Like so. Then I'll hit enter. I'll just make that bigger. And this can take, again, it'll take a couple minutes at most, usually. And it's faster than cloning it through the ArcGIS package manager inside ArcGIS Pro. There we go. So that's finished being cloned now. Then I can stay here in this same PowerShell to do my installs of the packages. So I'm just going to say cd scripts So that makes me go into the scripts subfolder of, oh, not there, but we want to go to the cloned environment. So I'll go CD. Well, actually, we'll close this now that it's cloned. And then we'll go to Conda clones. And it's right there. So it's just called Conda clones. I didn't give it a subfolder this time, the way that ArcGIS Pro does. I could have said Conda clones and then ArcGIS Pro Py3 dash clone or something. But here I just called Conda clones and it's just all in there. And I'm going to go to the scripts folder and I'm going to open up a PowerShell in here. So I'll hold Shift, right click, open PowerShell windows here, like so. So I'm going to say, in this case, pip dot /pip install. First, we'll go with GeoPy. So we have successfully installed GeoPy, and I'll say dot /pip install walkscore -API. And so it successfully installed those as well. Then I can close my PowerShell because I'm finished installing everything I needed in there. And I'll go to Conda clones again, and I'm just going to check in lib site packages to make sure that I see those folders. So I should see GeoPy first, right there. So that's good, and its info folder is there as well. Then scrolling down to find W for walk score, and there it is there. So the installs worked and the cloning environment worked. Now I have to do the same thing I did before with PyScripter and ArcGIS Pro. We'll start with ArcGIS Pro. So I'll click on ArcGIS Pro to open that up. And it doesn't have to be opened as administrator here. Then I'll just open up a template. Anything, it doesn't matter since we're not doing anything in ArcGIS Pro just yet. This is just to set up so we can get to the project tab. And then Python. And we can see our base Python is here. So I'll click on Manage Environments. And we won't see anything of the cloned environment showing up yet. We have to add it now. So we click on the Add button at the top. And I'm going to go to C, choose Conda clones, and click OK. And there's Conda clones. I'll now choose it as the default. And I'll have to say OK and then restart ArcGIS Pro for that to take effect. And I can see here, right there, it's now Conda clones. So I'll close ArcGIS Pro. Then I'll go back to find PyScripter, the zip file. And that's on my C drive. And I think I put it in lecture 8. There we go. So there's the PyScripter that I did in the first example. I'm just going to call that old here for now. So there's the PyScripter zip, and I'm going to say 7-zip or extract all, whichever one you want. And I'm going to extract it here. You can extract it wherever you want. And then I have a PyScripter folder. So I'll double click on that, go into PyScripter. And I'll double click on PyScripter exe. And again, this is a brand new fresh PyScripter instance. And I'm going to make things bigger so you can see them. So I'll go to tools first. I should say options. editor options, font, and I'll just put it at 20, like so. And you'll see the Python is down there at the bottom in the Python interpreter. But it's not the Python we want, which is the Python version in our cloned environment. So I'll go to Tools, Options, IDE Options. So the first thing I do is I have to include ArcPy under Special Packages. So right now it just has OS, and I'm going to say comma ArcPy, like so. Enter. Then I'm going to scroll down a little bit down here to Python Interpreter. And in Python Interpreter, reinitialize before run, I'm going to check it off so that it's false. That way, when we're testing code and stuff, we don't have to wait for a new interpreter to start up every time. It'll just stay in the same session, and that session will store all of our active environment, or all of our active variables and code. Then I'll click OK. So that's step 1. You can also check here. You can say Tools, Python Path, and it should show Python paths as such. Cancel. And then I go to Run, Python versions, set up Python versions. And I want to add an unregistered version. So I click the Add button. And I'm going to go to C and choose Conda Clones, because that's the folder that contains the cloned Python environment that I did manually through the command prompt. Select folder. Then I make that the default by clicking on the first button, Activate Selected Python Version. Up will come the firewall, and you say Allow Access. And now that's the default environment. So I can close that. And I'll just test it by saying import ArcPy, import walk score, import GeoPy. And I'll just run those. And wait for, yeah, and everything works fine. So that's the second way that we can go about installing the cloned environment and the packages that we need to work with. If all else fails, download the extmodules.zip and unzip that. So just unzip it. And in there are the Python modules. So if all else fails, copy these, Control-C, and then go to the default Python installation for ArcGIS Pro, which is on C, Program Files, ArcGIS Pro, bin, Python, ENVS, ArcGIS Pro -Py3. And then lib, site packages, and Control-V, paste them in there. And because you're the administrator of your own computer, you'll be asked if you want to continue or not. And then you can just continue, and it will paste the site packages in there, and then they will be available through the default installation of ArcGIS Pro. They won't hurt your base installation in this case. It's very unlikely that it will interfere with anything. So you would then click continue as an administrator. I'm not going to do that here. And then they'll be pasted in there. And then you just have to work with your default installation in ArcGIS Pro. So I'm just going to test out now my ArcGIS Pro installs, because remember, we just set up PyScripter And PyScripter is now pointing to the cloned environment. And we had set up ArcGIS Pro to go to the same cloned environment for Python to be used from now on until we change the interpreter. So I'll just say import walk score, and then I'll say import GeoPy, and they both import. I can say GeoPy dot, and there's all of the different things that come up with GeoPy, so I know that it's working. It was all installed properly, and everything's good for this particular exercise and this particular lecture.